floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, thank you. Today is my honor to have Susan Graves speak to us. She's the Chief Financial Officer of Etex. She's responsible for the accounting, human resources, and regulatory departments. So you carry a lot of different hats, huh, Susan? She's a 20-year veteran of Etex, making her an industry specialist with budgets, forecasting, and regulatory matters. Susan graduated cum laude from Texas A&M with a BBA in accounting and also a licensed CPA. As you can see, I skipped over Texas A&M pretty fast. An East Texas native, she and her husband reside in the area with their 3 daughters. She is an active member of Moberly Baptist Church, where she has taught Sunday school for many years. She also enjoys spending time with her friends and family and traveling. And folks, help me welcome, and it's my honor and pleasure to have Susan speak to us today. Thank you.
Danny, you may have to stand up here and hold it.
That's okay, I can do that too.
Can everybody hear me okay?
You got to speak a little closer to the microphone.
Okay, is that better? Everybody hear me?
You're
Okay. Just raise your hand or something if you can't hear me. Thanks for that introduction. Charlie was actually scheduled to speak today, and he had something come up, so he wasn't able to be here, and so you're stuck with me, and hopefully that you won't question his judgment whenever I'm finished. But and as Danny mentioned, I am a Texas A&M graduate, so I've heard my share of Aggie jokes, to say the least, even during lunch today. So since Charlie is a Texas Tech graduate and he's not here, I'm going to start off with a joke. And I apologize if there's any other Texas Tech graduates out there. I mean, no harm or offense. How do you recognize a Texas Tech student? By the rejection letter they received from the Texas A&M admissions office. Any chance I get, I need to give Charlie a hard time. So y'all can tell him if you want to. So today we'll go into the more important things, the telecommunications roadmap. When you think about a roadmap, it used to be easy, and when you think about it, you thought about the good old days when you were planning your family vacation. You pull out the trusty atlas, figure out where you're going to go and how you're going to get there. Well, unfortunately, because of smartphones and advancing technologies, those have become, the atlas has become a part of the past, and in much the same way, the telecommunications roadmap has become a way of the past because it has evolved so much through the many years. When Etex first began, our telecommunications roadmap was easy, and we didn't really have a problem figuring out where we were going or what we needed to do. Our primary objective was to get a landline to every customer. And the customers were so excited to get that landline, and that's all there was, and that's all they could get, but they were really excited about it, and that was in high demand. And it was a great accomplishment for Etex at the time to offer that to our customers. But as you can tell in this graph, landline phones are unfortunately a dying breed. And if you look, according to this graph, over the past 14 years, in 2004, 93% of households had a landline phone, and only 5% had a cell phone only. And if you compare that to 2017, 53% had a cell phone only, and 44% have a landline. So it's on the great decline. And so unfortunately landlines are not as important as they used to be, although for Etex they are still important, but because of our funding, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but to most people they're not as important as they used to be. So that was our first highway down our roadmap. The next highway, another major highway, was to offer cable TV or video, and for a while it was very lucrative, but in recent years there's been a growth in consumer options in the way that people want to watch TV. Traditional linear video programming is declining, And I know you probably already know this, but the linear video programming is where the customer selects a video package. They go to the provider, there's 3 or 4 different packages depending on which channels you want to watch. Then you choose which package you want. And unfortunately, when you choose a package, you get all these other channels with you. But unfortunately, the provider is required to give you those channels along with the ones you want because of the contracts that we have. But unfortunately, people don't want that anymore. So as this shows, they're cutting the cord. That's the phrase that people are using now. They're cutting the cord because they want to subscribe to internet-based streaming services like Amazon Fire TV, Roku, Apple TV, or Google TV, and so they can choose and be in more control. They want it, what they want to watch and when they want to watch it, and that goes along, unfortunately, with our society nowadays. We want to have it now. We don't want to wait. We want to have our own choice. So that's where that's headed. So the linear programming is declining as well. But in order to make all of that work, and so the 6 or 7 devices that you have, people streaming all at the same time, or probably more in your house all at once, you've got to have internet, and you've got to have a lot of bandwidth. So unfortunately, you could refer to this as our superhighways, the internet on our roadmap, and it's rapidly growing across the country because consumers want more and more bandwidth, and they want to pay less and less, unfortunately. So we have to figure out a way to make that happen. And this shows between September 2016, this is actual Etex, we pulled it out of our network, and from 2016 until September of 2018, that's how much the bandwidth usage has increased. And so that obviously you can see it's increasing rapidly. And this shows that we've seen this over the last several years. About every 18 months, our usage doubles, and so that means we got to increase our, do something to our equipment to make it handle that. We've got to buy new equipment. We've got to install fiber or whatever it takes so that we can meet the customer's demand if we can. And I've heard Charlie explain this before. He compares it to if you're at home and every 18 months you've got to rip out all of your plumbing in your house and replace it all. That's kind of what we have to do whenever we have to replace something to make the bandwidth, to meet the bandwidth requirements and demands. So as you can imagine, this can be very expensive, and it makes a CFO like me very nervous. So we have to figure out how we're going to pay for it, and that's my job. So fortunately, since Etex is a rural company, we are eligible for federal funding to help with that cost. The FCC has come up with a formula they've called the ACAM, which stands for Alternative Cost Allocation Model. And this sounds great. We're going to get funding. We're going to get able to get the services out to the customers who want them. But unfortunately, the government, specifically the FCC, doesn't fully understand the complexities of the rural companies and what the challenges that they face just because they're a rural company. In fact, I was at an industry meeting when we were trying to determine if Etex should go with the ACAM. We had a choice of whether we were going to opt into it or not. So we were trying to determine if that would be the best option for Etex. And the speaker was very frustrated, and he said, the FCC just hired some Harvard and Yale graduates and stuck them in a room and told them to come up with this plan to fund universal service, and so that everybody could have internet coverage. And he added that while there is no question those individuals were very smart and they could easily come up with a plan, the harsh reality was that probably they had never even been to a rural community. And so how could they decide, or how could they come up with this funding plan and and know what we face and what kind of funding we might need? So it makes it complicated, but nevertheless, the ACAM proved to be the best option for Etex, and so we opted in for a 10-year period. And the objective of the FCC's plan, they want, across the country, they want everyone to have access to affordable, high-speed internet so that everybody has that option and they can spread it around. Well, that's all said, that's all easy, but according to them, But unfortunately, so in order for us to do that, we have to we have to meet their build-out requirements that they are set out before us. So along with this funding, they're not just going to give us all this money and say, here you go. We have a plan that we have to follow in certain areas that they decided need more internet bandwidth, then we have to build out to those certain areas. And Etex's plan that we had already been implementing complements the FCC's plan, because that's what we want for our customers also. We want all of our customers to have access to high-speed internet at an affordable, reasonable price. So that's our goal as well. And we've been working really hard over the past years, and we've really, over many of our customers, have increased our internet speeds and lowered the price. So we're working to implement the FCC's plan. And although we do have big plans and we like to offer more and more services, the funding we receive is not quite enough to cover all of our costs that the FCC wants us to implement. So isn't that always the case? There's never enough funding. Everybody always needs more money, more money. So Etex is always constantly trying to think outside of the box. What's something that we can do, something different, unique, that will draw in more revenues for us, and so that we can make up that funding shortfall so that we can offer the best services. And this is a map of our coverage area when Etex was first incorporated. This was the area that they assigned to Etex, and it's 710 square miles. And as I mentioned before, we opted into a 10-year period for the ACAM, and so there's different areas that we have decided, and what the FCC has mandated, that we have got to build out to over the next 10 years. So as I go through these slides, it's going to show through the years in the 10-year period. So this is 17 and 18, that's our plan. Some's already done, and we're in the process of finishing up for 2018. And this is adding fiber or something comparable so that we can offer internet service to everybody, higher speeds. And then here's 19 and 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. So when that's all said and done, you might think, well, we did a pretty good job. We built out most of our network, and according to the FCC, all of our customers should have high-speed internet. Well, unfortunately, there's all this space that we identified as white space, and all of those areas were not funded for build-out. So now some of them will get funded because we have to cross over them to get to the areas that we need that are required to build out. But the FCC said, oh, those areas are fine. They don't really need to worry about those. It's these other areas. And again, it's based on the formula they came up with, which is not necessarily the best formula. But unfortunately, we have to abide by what the FCC tells us, or we get no funding. So we have to jump through their hoops so that we can get the additional funding. So it looks like we did a pretty good job, but again, unfortunately, that's not the case as far as there's still areas that can't be reached. So again, we're trying to think of ways that we can get more funding, different revenue streams to help make up that difference of that shortfall in funding. And this build out will be done, but as we go through these 10 years, this is just a graphic that shows we start off pretty high in one, but every year our ACAM funding goes down. So the challenge is we've got to come up again with different ways to make up that shortfall. So we not only have network challenges, we have funding challenges, and we also have regulatory challenges, which regulatory challenges in some ways may be the most difficult because it's like the government in our business trying to tell us this is the best way to run your business. Well, nobody wants the government telling you what to do. We all know our own business, but unfortunately, those regulations are in place, and we have to abide by them. So originally, USF, before the ACAM was put into place, the funding we got was based upon the number of access lines. And as I showed you on that very first slide, the access lines are rapidly declining. Well, it doesn't make much sense that a portion of our funding be based on something that is declining so much. So we've gotten together with some other small companies and our industry associations, And we're trying to lobby to get the support to be based upon broadband lines, because everybody's going to have a broadband line, and it's most likely not going to go away. It's only going to get bigger, or because everybody wants more and more. But unfortunately, as we're doing this, it all makes sense because, like I said, everybody does have a broadband line, but we are having to compete with the like big cable companies like Suddenlink and Comcast and Time Warner, and even the large telcos like Verizon and AT&T. They do not offer in the rural areas, but they don't want us to receive more any extra funding in order to offer to the rural areas. So they're, lobby against everything we're lobbying for. So it's an uphill battle, but we're slowly making progress. And because they just don't want us to have that funding. They don't think it's fair because they don't give any, that sort of thing. So, but we're still, the industry associations, and even, Charlie and I've been to Washington and also to Austin and talking to legislatures and just trying to understand, why it makes sense, why we need to change that, and why we need to have that continued support so that we can offer the services to our customers if they want. But again, it's an uphill battle, but we're still fighting. And as you can see, the telecommunications roadmap for Etex has become somewhat of a complicated balancing act to what it used to be between offering exceptional service to all of our customers at the lowest price. But we always have we're trying to balance that with that ever-present concern back here of the stability of our future financial support. Because as I told you, it's only for 10 years right now. Now, there's nothing in place right now after the 10 years, but we hope, and that's another portion of the lobbying that we're doing, we can't continue. We've got to have some kind of support if the FCC is really wanting us to offer the best service at the lowest price. You just can't, the mathematics don't work out, so we have to have some type of funding to continue that. So I anticipate that they'll come up with something. It may not be something that we want, but I don't think it can go away totally. And we also get some funding on the state side, and we're also working with that right now. The law's just been passed, and there's all these new hoops that we have to jump through in order to get our funding, but that's just part of the way it works. So we just have to keep on trugging along. We might encounter roadblocks along the way, but we're always going to have our customers and our community in mind. We always want to be a strong presence in our community and, do things to the community to make the community better, and we want Etex to be better. So, we're going to keep all of that in mind when we're determining the best route on our map for Etex. It's because we want everyone to benefit and everybody to have the best service that they can. That's really all I have. Does anybody have any questions? Yes?
On the slide where you showed your service area of 710 square miles, it said there were seven houses per square mile.
Yes.
So that means there's 4,900 houses that you serve. Does that make that sense?
Give or take, approximately, yes.
In the service area?
Yes, within that service area.
So what counties, well, let me ask you, do you serve Grant County and Harrison County?
No. We might have a little bit in Harrison County right now, but this is not part of Harrison County.
Yeah, so we have our ILEC area that we have, the traditional area that we're talking about here. Our CLEC area, which is our competitive exchanges, which is Gilmer, we went into White Oak, we went into some new territories. Those are outside of the umbrella of AP.
How do you, what gives you the option to call your company a rural service company versus a metropolitan service company?
It's based upon a definition from the PUC, and the PUC is on the state side and the FCC is federal. What the density is, how many houses per mile. If it's more densely populated, then it's going to be an urban area as opposed to a rural area. And that's where most of the big companies are, and they can offer more at a higher, doesn't take as long, I guess, and the cost is a lot less and it's more efficient because there's so many people and they can get many more houses in a mile, whereas, we can only do 7. So that's one of the difficulties that we face.
Would y'all explain the CLAC and what opportunities CLAC, yeah.
This, again, is our ILEC, which stands for Incumbent Local Exchange Carrier. When it was all started way back when, Etex, this was what we were given, that's our service area. And if you get a competitive local exchange carrier, which is CLEC, is when you go outside of this area to offer coverage. And there's typically no funding for that. We do have a CLEC that we set up, but it doesn't receive any funding. It pays into the USF fund, but it doesn't receive any. So we just have to, we do business studies and things like that to determine, is it going to be worth it to make that investment outside of our CLEC and not receive any funding. But we've done the math, and lately, so usually it's 70% to the ILEC, 30% to the CLEC.
Okay.
So we're still focusing on the CLEC because that's where we got started, and we obviously want to keep those customers. But we do have to expand out into other areas in order to compete.
And ironically enough, Gilmer, the city limits of Gilmer was not our ILEC, even though we're headquartered here. It was not encompassed in that. I believe Verizon, that's actually, they're the actual incumbent in Gilmer. So the tens of millions of dollars that we invested in fiber in Gilmer was not funded by the federal government.
Right.
Would you share your email?
My email?
Your email address?
Sure. It's sgraves, GRAVES, @etexcoop.net.
Etex?
Co-op, COOPETEX, COOP.net. Yes. Yes, send me any questions or concerns, and we'll be happy to help. Yes,
Is
yes.
there a chance that the fiber cables might start breaking down anytime?
There's a chance, but typically no. It's pretty much from here till eternity.
Yes.
Hopefully, it's the best, and that's why so many are. It used to be aerial was the best thing, but now to have it buried, it's less likely to, unless somebody cuts it. But that can be fixed. But it's typically doesn't work out. It just needs, the reason we have to replace it is because we need it bigger, because we need more capacity. So that's why typically we need to replace it. Anybody else?
Any other questions?
Thank you.